Many FNAF fan games try to give their own unique spin on what exactly they want their vision to feel like. Whether this is by adding new characters, making a whole different setting, or even completely changing every single mechanic. These new games are always trying to do something entirely new, and that includes a story. One of the Flumpties is about an all-powerful egg who kidnaps a player just to mess with them. Five Nights at Candy's is about a rat and a cat who do some spooky things. And the Return to Freddy's... well, we don't talk about that game's lore at all. Essentially speaking, all of these games try to change the game's story in order to fit their narrative, some more than others. But something that I find extremely interesting is what if you make a fan game completely based on the original story? Not really changing anything, but slightly adding new elements here and there. This is where we meet the game, The Return to Bloody Nights. Let's talk about how it creates real fear based on the already established lore from the year 1983. Quick disclaimer, I went to a concert a couple days ago and my voice is a little strange, so if I sound a little off, that is why. Before we get to the game, there is a bit of text that pops up, which is something that really summarizes the whole experience. Just before you play, please take in mind that this fan game doesn't try to renovate the original well-known FNAF formula. Its gameplay and story don't push the limits to a new groundbreaking point. This game was developed by very passionate fans who loved the first 4 Five Nights at Freddy's games and its initial story. Later saying, all the development process was incredibly challenging to us, and we want you to understand that we're very young people who made this game out of passion, so it may not be perfect or any better than any other FNAF fan games around, but we truly love what we have created so far. And the one sentence from the wiki really explains everything so perfectly. This game is a love letter to FNAF. When creating any fan game, not just the ones for the FNAF community, the most important thing is how passionate are the developers towards the series. Already, we know that this game wasn't meant to try anything new, and it's simply to create a new experience while giving people who already played the first original FNAF games a sense of nostalgia. But I love that. As an older fan of the series myself, the first 4 games are what drew me into the lore. So this is probably extremely biased for me, but this premise made me love this game already. Starting this game up, before any gameplay at all, we will see this very first cutscene, which is a short but well-designed view from inside one of the animatronics. We hear breathing for some reason, children laughing in the distance, and even some music. We could tell that this was supposed to be Fredbear's Family Diner because of Spring Bonnie in front of us. This was the very first restaurant that started the Freddy Fazbear franchise. Not only does this tell us the location of where this game is taking place in, but also when, since this is most likely going to be around the bite of 83. We could look around for a bit until what I'm assuming is a closet door closing on us before we fade into the actual game's intro screen. The intro screen is simple, but was something I liked as well due to it not having the normal night 1 through 5, but instead Monday through Friday. This is something small, it doesn't really matter, but most FNAF fan games just copy the numbering of each night, so this slight change was pretty refreshing. Starting the first night leads to this phone call between William Afton, who I'm assuming since you clicked this video, you know that he's the good guy in the original FNAF series. No sarcasm there. And Henry Emily. The voice acting is absolutely phenomenal in this game.
Well, we've had a pretty good run with Freddy Fazbear's Pizza so far. It's been doing really well.
Yeah, I've heard. I'm actually a bit jealous, to be honest. I really want my place to be as successful, if not more successful, than Freddy's.
Already, we could point out some concerning things within this universe. For one, there are other restaurants that use animatronics and it seems that there were malfunctions before. Those malfunctions weren't really specified as to what exactly happened, but it did cause some guests to become injured, which is a giant concern for Henry. William, however, whether this is due to overconfidence or not really being concerned, seems to think that he has everything under control, while also having this slight foreshadowing line about being jealous, something we should probably remember for later. There's going to be this trend where there's actually 2 phone calls within each night. The first one is between William Afton and Henry, which we just heard, with the second one being the one between us, the player, and this game's version of the phone guy. He introduces himself as Waffle Brokey. At least that's what I hear.
Hello there, I'm Waffle Brokey, the CEO.
Anyways, he explains that you are the night guard who will need to watch over this place. For now, there are only 2 animatronics that he talks about, which are the iconic Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. These 2 are already established within the original game's lore, but as the games progress, there will be more to talk about. Continuing the call, he talks about how they're actually experimenting with the new features within the animatronics, which is this free roam mechanic that lets them walk around in the restaurant. What's weird is that he acknowledges that if the animatronics are near your office, to make sure to close the doors to keep them out. Not really explaining why though. This is probably due to the quote-unquote malfunctions mentioned previously. Now, for the first night, there really is only one mechanic that we need to talk about, which are the doors. I genuinely love this game's unique premise and how to balance the doors feature. It's not explained within the calls, but closing down the doors will cause the generator's heat to rise up slowly. And if the doors are closed at the same time, then this meter at the bottom will increase quite rapidly. There's no such thing as power in this game at all, so we don't have to worry about using the cameras for too long. However, with no power, this generator is what we need to watch out for, since if it reaches the max, the generator will overheat, causing the doors to be stuck open with no way to close them again. I quite like this, since the generator's heat isn't static, so if you stop using the doors, then it will just cool down. In the earlier nights, this will honestly not be a problem. However, in the later nights, this will be something that will get quite annoying. Don't worry, I'll talk about why later on. So night 1 was just watching out for Spring Bonnie walking around, and at least in my playthrough, he never even came close to the office. This is most likely done as a way to get players used to the mechanics and atmosphere before jumping up the difficulty. And oh boy, does the difficulty spike up soon. The end of night 1 leads to this cutscene, which I believe is us scanning Fredbear for anything paranormal. I'm not sure why else we'd be scanning him using this thing in our hand. The first time I played this, it was honestly kind of nerve-wracking since I expected him to jump scare me at the end. And when nothing did, I was hating myself for making me scared about nothing. This cutscene will repeat itself most of the nights with the different animatronics. Just saying it now so I don't have to repeat it every single time it shows up. Now, night 1 is usually the most boring night since it's expected that nothing happens. Now, the night 2 phone call between William and Henry is essentially the same as the first one. Henry being concerned that William is rushing things due to him trying to finish the animatronics before the deadline. But this phone call is a little different since it tells us about a new problem. William recently got out of a fresh divorce, and this is causing Henry to feel as though this might be affecting his mental health, which could result in some issues with the new animatronics. It sounds as though Henry genuinely cares about William and tells him if he needs to talk, he is there for him. But William brushes this off and says everything is under control once again, which is where we lead off to night 2. This night's phone call reveals something we've never heard before. The spring-lock suits can actually be worn. But that aside, there were some incidents of these suits malfunctioning, as one guy had to be rushed to the hospital due to his legs being crushed. It seems he's alive, so it wasn't that big of an issue. Hopefully, no one gets crushed to death within one of these spring-lock suits way in the future. I mean, he deserved this, so yay! Now, for the introduction of honestly, my favorite animatronic probably forever now. There was this new design that Henry himself made, but needed to be put away due to it causing issues within the restaurant, though it is never explained what exactly it did. However, it was later remade to be some sort of prized corner since they didn't want to get rid of it completely, with the new location also being within your office, right behind you. Ever so often, we need to look behind us and use a flashlight in the dark to see if this box opens up. Inside of it holds the puppet, which is similar to the one from FNAF 2, but honestly it's so creepy to me for some reason. I personally watched a horror movie when I was around 10 years old about a clown. I can't remember what it was about, but it terrified me so bad that I had nightmares about it for weeks. Now every time I see a clown in public, I will actively stay away from him. You cannot convince me that a person who willingly looks like this is mentally stable under all that makeup. But that's probably why this design of the puppet is so well made, at least to me. Feeding off a childish fear of clowns. The addition to the bells of their hat and the lankiness of it all was just so creepy in game since it had multiple phases of how close it was to you. When you see the puppet, all you will need to do is flash your light at it to make it go back into the box. Now what's interesting is the puppet can't actually kill you. Instead, they will jump scare you, which sounds completely ridiculous. Yes, that's his actual jump scare sound. I didn't edit that at all. But instead of ending your game, it will cause all the other animatronics to become much more aggressive. I'll talk about why this is a problem later since I don't want to spoil anything yet. Just know that you will need to check behind you every so often to make sure the puppet isn't near you, or else you'll have a really bad night. This night is simple, but a little bit more of an issue since now we have to worry about Fredbear the puppet and Spring Bonnie coming after us. I forgot to mention this, but the little effect of the spring-lock animatronics looking into your office is its own mini jump scare, which caused me to panic the first time I saw it.
I'm fixing its music box, which is also supposed to make them talk, but in the meantime, just remember to keep that door shut if—
Once this happens, you have a short window to close the doors, which is another thing I love due to the designs being based on the animatronics that come from each location. Now, this was an issue that a lot of people had when first playing this game, which was the third night. And oh wow, did a lot of people have an issue with this third night. The third night's phone call between Henry and William focuses on designs of new animatronics. Henry was trying to address the concerns that the new animatronics don't look like they might be child-friendly, and in fact, look quite creepy, with Henry trying to reassure him that these are just the earlier designs, with the finished products looking much more appealing. Sure, I guess. Continuing the conversation, Henry once again asks about how William is doing, which he opens up for a bit. It's been tough for him, but he's focusing on not only the animatronics but also his kids, since they're all he cares about now. With Henry trying to sympathize with him, explaining that his own daughter is all he has left as well. With this night's phone call ending with the two wishing each other to take care of themselves. It's admittedly a pretty sad situation that adds a humanizing side to the characters. We don't really see William's personal reactions before he becomes a purple guy, so all we know him as is a serial killer with no remorse. But adding these calls gives a new life to the characters and changes him from a random villain to a horrible person with more depth. There is a massive distinction between these two things. Moving on to this game's actual gameplay. Let me just say, there was a patch done due to numerous people complaining about Night 3. However, it still was so ridiculously hard for me. For one, not only do the three animatronics I already mentioned before become much more aggressive, two new ones are also introduced, those being Fredbear 2.0 and Spring Bonnie 2.0. Original names, I know. Now, imagine me not knowing anything about the game and simply playing this blind. The mechanics aren't explained until after you get jump scared by those animatronics, which I actually liked. I enjoyed more difficult games that don't hold your hand explaining every single thing you need to do. Letting you lose and finding out how to defend yourself easier, in my opinion, is a far better option than just giving these giant text boxes to ruin your immersion within these kinds of fan games. I'm looking at you, Candy. Also, let's talk about the game over screens because these things are horrifying. Genuinely horrifying. I absolutely love them because of this. In the older FNAF games, it was told to us that the animatronics want to stuff us within the suits, thinking we are some sort of endoskeleton, but here? I'm not going to attempt to explain what could have happened, just that it was not pretty. As you could probably tell by the pictures on screen. Now, back to the difficulty of this third night. Fredbear 2.0 is, in my opinion, one of the most terrifying animatronics within this game. Not only is his design perfectly creepy, with him lacking any eyes and essentially always being in the dark when we see him, his gameplay mechanics is truly where he shines best. When you hear this sound, he is now going to be active. When you first hear this, not knowing what is happening, it will probably cause you to go into full panic mode, since now there's just a weird sound playing and slowly getting louder. What you have to do is basically ignore it for now. You'll have to look towards your left and use your flashlight inside the doorway. That's where you'll see Fredbear 2.0. He starts all the way in the back, going to the middle, and eventually ending up in a doorway where he'll put his head closer to you. This small animation of him getting close to you while staring at you with his empty sockets is so unsettling to me for some reason. Thankfully, due to the sound, this allows us to not really have to worry about him since we can always tell when he's close to us. The second animatronic, and the one that caused me so much pain, I swear this thing is so annoying to deal with, is Spring Bonnie 2.0. Its mechanic is extremely simple. It will start in the parts and service room before reaching the right hall, essentially playing hide and seek with us. He will creep closer and closer until he is right in front of the camera, covering his face. When you see this, you will need to quickly close the doors on him, or else he will jump scare you. Every single animatronic, not including the puppet behind us, will have this small pause of them being right in front of the door. Spring Bonnie 2.0, however, immediately runs from the camera to your office without much warning. He gets kinda mad when you close the door on him since he bangs on it a little hard. The design is extremely similar to the original counterpart, but with two white eyes. I don't know why they decided to use these colored eyes, but it works well in my opinion. Especially since these are the eyes that will stare at you on the camera when they remove their hands. At first, this night was difficult, mostly due to me not knowing how the two new animatronics worked since, like I said, they weren't really explained. And I feel as though many people had the same problem. But after figuring out their mechanics, shouldn't the difficulty of this night become a lot easier? Well, the issue is that every animatronic becomes really aggressive, causing you to go basically from worrying about only 3 animatronics walking around that you track pretty easily on the cameras, along with the puppet not really being an issue, to essentially having 5 animatronics to worry about, with the camera only being used to look at where Spring Bonnie 2.0 is. At least that was a tactic I used to win. I would only use the cameras to quickly check on the left and right halls right next to the office to see where Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, and Spring Bonnie 2.0 are, since it would waste too much time to look anywhere else. Every few seconds, we would need to look behind us due to the puppet, which causes even more time to worry about, along with the constant talking made by Fredboy 2.0 warning that we need to check his hall to make sure he's not at the doors at all. To say that this night was difficult is an understatement. Come on, come on. Oh my god, we spent literally 3 hours yesterday trying to beat that night. We spent 3 hours yesterday to beat that night. We finally made it to the next morning. Oh my god. Oh my god. We finally did it. Oh, you creeped me out. Okay, time to read chat, finally. Yes, I streamed for a whole 3 hours, with nearly 3 hours of that stream only being to beat night 3, since the first 2 ones were beaten pretty easily. Admittedly, I was focusing on chat more than the game itself, so that's my excuse. Night 4's phone call is William mostly being bitter about the divorce, but other than that, nothing really important is mentioned. Now, the actual phone call towards us tells us that we participated in the phone call recordings that morning. I believe this is implying that we were actually the phone guy from FNAF 1. But that's just my own guess, since I have no idea why else they would include that little detail in here. There also appears to be an issue with the restaurant, which I'll just let play out.
Now, hold on a moment, I'm being interrupted. What's up, Karen?
There's this document that just arrived.
What?
It's better for you to look at it.
A notice document about the closure of all our restaurants due to investigations regarding one of the founders being convicted of a crime.
Yes.
Including Fredbear's family.
Yes.
That's outrageous! Alright, I understand. Now, please return to whatever you are doing. Thanks for bringing the note, Karen. Karen, Karen, Karen. She's always trying to bring down the company. But let me assure you, we have nothing to hide and nothing to fear. Fazbear Entertainment is as clean as a whistle, and that founder is as innocent as a newborn baby. Trust me on this one, kid. I apologize for that interruption. It is unpleasant news, but don't let it get you down. The closure of the restaurants won't mess with your work schedule, so you're good to go. Keep doing what you're doing, and you'll be just fine.
Yeah, the founder that they're talking about most likely is completely innocent. Now, with this night being just a harder version of the previous one, and trust me, I lost my mind multiple times after so many attempts that after beating it, my mental state is permanently damaged. But since there isn't really anything new, let's talk about the hidden characters. The golden cupcake is adorable and deserves its own entire franchise. Just look at him and tell me you wouldn't die for it. All it does is basically block your camera sometimes, which is pretty manageable since all you need to do is switch to another camera and then go back to wherever you're looking at. In game though, they don't look too friendly. So yeah. The endoskeletons are actually something that could attack us, at least only the Spring Bonnie one. The Fredbear endoskeleton is in the parts and service room just sitting down, but it doesn't move at all. The Spring Bonnie one is the one in the right door laying down, and sometimes can be seen getting up. We can see them if we flash our light in that direction, similar to how we do that to every single other animatronic. It is rare, so you can beat the whole game without ever seeing it at all. Though, if you do notice it standing, all you will need to do is close the door and it will disappear. This kind of reminds me of the endoskeleton Easter egg from FNAF 2, which a lot of people thought was a hoax for some time. It is an extremely rare event that could happen but does not actually affect the game at all, since it could only be viewed on the cameras and cannot actually attack you. Not much is known about why this is even in the game, since it just appears to be something Scott put in for fun. Or it could have some lore significance that we just haven't connected yet. Who knows though. Not sure if this is where they got the idea for putting those other endoskeletons in their game, since I am only just making a guess. There are the Shadow animatronics in the game as well, which will only appear on the cameras. Shadow Freddy appearing more back, and Shadow Bonnie appearing like the golden cupcake. I never had these animatrons within my own playthrough, nor can I find much about them online, so I'm assuming that they're just purely Easter eggs that can't actually end your game. Though, if you have more information about them, leave them in the comments down below. Thank you very much. However, if I can make an educated guess, they could most likely just crash your game if you stare at them too long, since that's what the Shadow animatronics of FNAF 2 did. Now that we talked about the hidden characters, let's move on to the last day of the week. Night 5's phone call is a lot more serious than the rest. I'll just let it play out.
I'm calling to express my condolences. I can't even imagine what you're feeling right now.
Thank you, Henry. Without a doubt, this is a tragedy.
I'm sorry, William. If there's anything I can do.
It's too late for that. It's too late for everything.
I know. I've lost people too. I know what it feels like to feel that the world is coming to an end.
No, you don't. You have no idea what it's like to lose a child. You have a perfect life. You're a happy family. You don't know anything. You don't know how I feel right now.
I'm sorry, William. I just...
Enough! Enough! You can't even imagine what's happening to me right now.
I understand that you're going through a difficult time, William, but please don't do anything rash. It won't solve anything.
You're right, Henry. It won't solve anything. But I'm not interested in solving anything. I'm interested in revenge.
What do you mean?
You have it all, don't you, Henry? A happy family, a fulfilling life, and yet, fate strikes without warning.
William, I know. I'm truly sorry about what happened. Is there anything I can do to help?
No. There's nothing you or anyone can do. But there are things that must be done.
What things, William?
That's not for you to worry about, Henry. Just remember this. Every action has a consequence, and some consequences are more dire than others.
So, yeah, this appears to be after a certain bite once again. With William feeling vengeful and his life seemingly crumbling down, we move on to this night's phone call, which talks about how 6 kids went missing recently. I actually really love the voice acting in this game, so let's just play it out and see what happens.
You're doing great so far, but I need you to stay alert. We can't let anything go wrong, especially now. Now listen, I know things have been a bit strange lately. The building and the other restaurants are closed, and the police are still investigating the disappearance of around 6 children. It's a serious matter, and we're doing everything we can to help the authorities. Yet for some reason, police seem to think we're covering up evidence. But let me tell you something, that's not possible unless someone from our company is involved. And I can assure you we're not involved in any way. For Christ's sake, one of those children belongs to one of the founders of this place. The poor kid disappeared about a month ago. It breaks my heart to think about it. We will get to the bottom of this, though. Whoever's behind these incidents will pay if something bad happened to those kids, and for the damage they've done to our company's reputation. You can count on that. In the meantime, keep up the good work. Check on those animatronics and let's finish this week strong. And when this is all over, mark my words, we'll take this company to new heights. We'll have entire malls dedicated to our lovable characters.
Like I said, the voice acting is really well done, and it's surprising since a lot of FNAF fan games that try to replicate the phone calls from the original games tend to fall flat. But in this case, it really feels like the phone calls are genuinely believable with how much emotion are behind them. To those who voice acted within this game, congratulations, you did an amazing job. Similar to the previous nights, nothing new is added except for the difficulty, once again, spiking. Dear Lord, I hate myself for forcing myself to beat this night because honestly I lost brain cells from trying to complete it. Finally though, after finishing this night, we will finally get the first ending of this game.
It has been many years since the incident that changed everything. I have done unforgivable things since then. The missing children, it was all my doing. But do not mistake my confidence for remorse, for I am not sorry. My animatronics were always meant to be more than mere entertainers. They were created to wield fear, to evoke terror, and bring forth the ultimate consequence, death. Oh, Elizabeth, my sweet Elizabeth. She failed to listen to me, and she became the unfortunate victim of a programming error, a mere flaw in my creation. But I could not bear the burden of responsibility, for that would tarnish my flawless image. Instead, I pushed the blame away onto others, for I could not admit fault. And then there was Charlotte, Henry's daughter. I could not bear to see him bask in all his happiness and receive all the credit for our work. My jealousy consumed me, and I had to take matters into my own hands. Do not think for a moment that I fear the consequences of my actions. I am not guilty, not in my mind. I meticulously crafted the evidence to make it appear as though Henry was the one responsible, for I had bigger plans in mind. Plans that require my full attention and dedication. I have built a new place for my new creations, a place that will instill wonder and fear into the heart of all who bear witness. And soon, I will reveal what is coming next.
So, William Afton seems to have been mentally stable after the divorce, doing things all single fathers who care about their kids do, like creating animatronics designed to be killing machines and ultimately killing his own daughter in the process, and regretting his actions but in turn causing him to become even more deranged. So yeah, basically a regular weekend for every single father. The credit screen shows a wall of missing children posters, along with everyone who was involved with the project. This wall right here was honestly a pretty nice touch, since it feels pretty well fitting to put within the end. Remember, this is way before the incident in FNAF 3, when the spring lock failure. So to add this just shows that the killer's still on the loose at this point. I actually do like the little bit of storytelling within this game, even if it is recycling the old one. Here, we get to the night that caused me to basically want to end making this whole video. Night 6 starts off with no beginning phone call with William or Henry, except for the one directed towards us. It's explained that there was another incident involving one of the yellow suits, which caused him to stop using them entirely. I wonder who could be using a yellow suit to cause issues for this franchise. Now, when I say I want to end this video because I felt like I couldn't beat Night 6, I mean it. The amount of times I wanted to stop playing since I kept dying over and over and over again was exhausting. Eventually, I would make it to 6 AM after all this time, where the final cutscene will be played out. It is just one little girl, seemingly the same one in the original Give Cake minigame, that will be killed by the purple guy. Saying I found two others who are just like me that need her help, wanting to save them and guide them in order to give them their happiest day, before revealing all the missing children and fading to black. The happiest day is most likely referring to the happiest day minigame where the children's souls leave their bodies so they could finally move on. The final screen we get is of her paycheck with a memo behind it, talking about how due to the recent unexpected events, their company would have to be given to another. Not only do we finally get to see the second ending, we also get to unlock the extras menu, which reveals some information about each animatronic. Some we already know about, but what's interesting is that this new Spring Bonnie 2.0 suit is what William used as a suit to murder children, as well as being the same suit used to become Springtrap, not the original Spring Bonnie. Now, to explain the entire story, which is heavily based on the original FNAF game's lore. Fredbear's Family Diner was very successful with only the two original animatronics. Children loved that their favorite characters were basically alive singing for them. This is where William Afton would suggest to Henry that they should remake the animatronics to be more advanced and much safer. This suggestion would eventually lead to the 2.0 animatronics. Though this was most likely a front, as he would use this new Spring Bonnie suit to go around giving children a big ol' bonk on the head. 5 to be exact. With his already unstable mental state, his jealousy towards Henry would only continue to grow. Henry had everything he ever wanted, a stable family, successful career, and seemingly was very happy. This jealousy would become too much to contain and cause him to drive up behind a pizzeria where he would see Charlotte, Emily, Henry Emily's only daughter. With no one around and the screaming of children within the restaurant, no one would ever suspect a thing. She most likely already knew about William due to him being business partners with her dad. Without understanding why, she would be killed at that place, all alone. The puppet was an animatronic specifically designed by Henry in order to protect Charlotte from danger, though for reasons unknown, was made to be stuck and unable to get out of the box. Eventually, it would come to her already cold body and have her spirit possess the animatronic. Although she was a child, she would still have a strong sense of protecting those in need, which is why her spirit wanted to give the other 5 missing children another chance at life. Though it would be within the newer Freddy Fazbear animatronic suits. Everything else is already explained within the FNAF 3 minigames of how William takes apart the animatronics but in the end meets his demise at the hands of the same suit he used to cause all his victims to pass away, painfully becoming Springtrap. I really love how this game basically takes what's already established and fleshes it out to be a pretty engaging story. William Afton as a villain was pretty simple, but iconic. There was no need to make things complicated and it worked perfectly for the story for many years. The only time I believe William Afton's voice was actually used in the series before he became Springtrap was in Sister Location, where he was talking about the design of Circus Baby.
There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state-of-the-art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping that you could shed some light on those.
She can dance, she can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
There technically hasn't been any FNAF games based on William Afton's beginning years. FNAF 3 doesn't count since it's after all the murders took place and many years after FNAF 4. And the fourth game doesn't count either since it doesn't really focus on William himself, but instead on the crying child who became the victim of Fredbear. So, for a game to specifically be about William's past was a concept that worked really well in my opinion. Now, for the gameplay. It felt extremely difficult near the end, but personally, that's a good thing. If a player wants to achieve the complete ending of a game, they should struggle for it to get everything they want. The graphics were pretty well made as well, from the camera systems, the animatronics, and even the environment. The office doors were also pretty great due to them having the animatronic that goes to their side painted on them, which honestly was funny at points when you flash your light in those halls only to have them jump scare you, so closing the doors on them to reveal their face again was pretty entertaining. All in all, how did this game actually feel? It was definitely fun, and that surprised me since, for some reason, one of the criticisms I found about this game was that it was essentially a FNAF 1 clone with a random redesign. That's not the impression I got though. It had many different elements to feel like its own game, from the cutscenes, unique phone calls, the intense moments, and all the new mechanics. Yes, the puppet could be chalked up as kind of like the Freddles. And oh wow, I could not find the names of these things. They're not on the FNAF 4 game wiki, and I almost thought I remembered them wrong since I couldn't find them anywhere. Anyways, you look behind you and you flash a light at them to make them go away, similar to the puppet. This definitely feels like its own game that borrowed the story of FNAF, so to call it a FNAF 1 clone just feels disingenuous. Either that, or they're all people who got mad that they couldn't beat the third night. Yeah, I'm calling all you out. Since there were a bunch of people on Twitter and Reddit crying that the third night was too hard. Wah wah. Seriously though, to cry about how a game is hard and then say it's bad because of its difficulty is weird to me. Yes, there are games that have fundamentally broken systems that makes it unfair for the player, but this game doesn't really have any systems that were fundamentally broken, just that it was difficult due to how aggressive the animatronics were. That's not really a bad thing. You're entitled to your own opinions, but a game's difficulty shouldn't be the only measure to how enjoyable it is. Like I said, this is all personal opinion. Yes, after night 3, a lot of times there were moments even I felt frustrated, but it only caused me to push through further to see the rest of how the creators want to tell the story. Basically, what I'm saying is, just get good. There were some secret 8-bit minigames and 8-bit cutscenes that I couldn't find. There was one that was this platformer which I couldn't beat for the life of me no matter how many times I tried. Even Markiplier couldn't do it, so there's no way I'm gonna attempt to do it. And trust me, I spent many hours of my life trying to win and just couldn't. But if there are others, I couldn't find them since on the wiki they're not stated anywhere yet. And even on other YouTube channels, they weren't really presented either, at least at the time of recording this video. Who knows, maybe in the future it'll get updated since this fan game is still relatively new. This is not related to my review, but I was streaming this game on YouTube and one of the creators of Twisted Mind Games actually joined the stream to thank me for playing their game, also expressing how they found the puppet to be their favorite animatronic design to make, so I guess that makes us my twinninum. Though it's probably whoever was on the account at the time who liked the puppet since there are multiple people responsible for this project. They have a YouTube channel that you should definitely check out as they expressed they had plans on making another game in the future. Not sure if it's going to be a sequel to the Return to Bloody Nights or another project similar to it. I'll also be linking the GameJolt website on where you can all play this game as well. Either way, I can't wait to see what else they will be making in the future. Thank you so much for your retelling of William Afton's depravity. Anyways, if you like this video, like and subscribe, comment down something you enjoyed or hated about the game. In the meantime, I've been talking for a really long time, so I'm going to take a nap. Peace.